Somewhere in your work week, there's a task you did for maybe 20 minutes. It didn't feel important. No one clapped. But that 20 minutes might be responsible for more of your income than the other 30 hours combined. Sit with that. Most of what you call work might just be motion. And a tiny sliver of it might be the actual engine. Today, we're going hunting for that engine. Here's what's at stake: your hours. Not hypothetical hours, the ones you're spending right now, this week, on things you assume are necessary. If a small number of tasks are quietly generating most of your value, then everything else you're doing is, at best, neutral. At worst, it's actively costing you money, energy, and time you'll never get back. This isn't about working harder. It's about finding out if you've been aiming in the wrong direction the entire time. In 1896, an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto was studying land ownership and income distribution across different societies. He noticed something strange: wealth wasn't spread out evenly. Instead, a small percentage of people consistently held a large majority of the wealth, and this pattern showed up again and again, across different countries and time periods. Pareto wasn't writing a self-help book. He was documenting something mathematical. Unequal distribution isn't random. It's a recurring shape that shows up in nature and in human systems. Decades later, that observation would get a name: the 80/20 principle, and it would leap far beyond economics. Fast forward, and researchers kept finding the same shape in completely different arenas. Academic work on operations management has tested this distribution across business and knowledge work domains and found the same lopsided pattern: a small share of inputs, clients, tasks, products, decisions, tend to produce the majority of measurable output. It's not a coincidence confined to one industry. It shows up in service work, in tech, in professional work of almost every kind. The implication is unsettling. Most of what fills your calendar might be structurally destined to matter less, no matter how hard you work at it. Now bring it into the modern workplace. Data-driven analysis from research on productivity and work allocation has shown how workers actually spend their time versus which tasks drive measurable output, and the gap can be significant. Some organizations that have studied this have found that cutting or reducing low-value activities correlates with meaningful gains in firm-level profitability. Meanwhile, research summarized in Business Commentary on Task Prioritization has looked at how executives identify high-value versus low-value work, and found that time allocation patterns are linked to career advancement and income. In other words, the people rising fastest aren't necessarily working the most hours. They may simply be spending more of their limited hours on the tasks that count. This is where the story shifts from diagnosis to decision. In 2007, Timothy Ferriss popularized this exact tension in the 4-hour work week, not as an academic exercise, but as a personal and business optimization framework. His core argument wasn't do the important stuff better. It was blunter: eliminate the low-impact stuff entirely. Don't optimize the 80% that barely matters, cut it. Ferriss offered case studies and practical frameworks specifically built around identifying which activities were actually driving income and which were just noise dressed up as productivity. The turning point isn't a hack. It's a mindset shift. Stop asking how do I do more, and start asking what can I stop doing completely. When people and organizations actually go through this exercise, mapping every task against the value it produces, the results tend to look similar. A small cluster of activities, often 5 or fewer, turns out to be doing almost all the heavy lifting. Everything else is maintenance, habit, or obligation dressed up as necessity. Research summarized by McKinsey has pointed to measurable productivity gaps tied to how tasks are prioritized, and case studies referenced by Harvard Business Review show organizations that deliberately cut low-impact activities and reported real changes in output. The outcome isn't magic. It's clarity, seeing, often for the first time, where your effort was actually going. Here's the interpretation, and this part is our analysis, not a lab result. Effort and value are not the same currency. You can be exhausted and underpaid. You can be relaxed and thriving. The variable isn't how hard you work. It's whether your hours are landing on the narrow slice of activity that actually creates value. Pareto saw this in land and income over a century ago. Modern research keeps finding the same shape in modern jobs. The lesson isn't work less. It's work in the right place. So how do you actually find your 5? Start by listing every recurring task you did last month. Everything, no matter how small. Next to each one, write down its actual outcome. Did it lead to income, a client relationship, a deliverable someone paid for, or a decision that moved something forward? Then look for the outliers, the handful of items where the outcome was disproportionate to the time spent. That's your short list. The next step, borrowed directly from the elimination mindset Ferris described, is not to optimize the rest. It's to ask for each remaining task, what happens if I simply stop? This is educational, not a guarantee. Everyone's job, contract, and responsibilities are different, and this isn't a substitute for professional business or financial advice tailored to your specific situation. Before you close this video, open your calendar from last week. Just look at it. Somewhere in there is a 20-minute task doing more work than you've been giving it credit for. Find it, then ask yourself what you could stop doing to make room for more of it. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, subscribe, because next time, we're going hunting for another hidden pattern quietly running your life.